Hi, I'm Bob Iaculo. United Water believes that all citizens need to be informed about the important issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Rational religion in the 21st century, next on Caucus, New Jersey.
Funding for this edition of Caucus, New Jersey has been provided by Caldwell University, United Water. Making the planet sustainable is the best job on Earth. Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, the heart of academic medicine. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation. Wells Fargo. And by NJM, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and more, with a focus on safety and financial stability. Promotional support provided by Commerce Magazine. And by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
Welcome to Caucus, New Jersey. I'm Steve Adubato. You know, one of the major challenges facing religion is making the teachings of long ago relevant today. Here to discuss exactly what rational religion is, we have Dr. Alp Aslandogan, Executive Director of the Alliance for Shared Values. Stephen Ollendorff, founder of the Ollendorff Center. Dr. Anthony Cernera, who is the founder and president of Being the Blessing Foundation, also former president of Sacred Heart University. And finally, Jacov Sedlar, award-winning documentary filmmaker. I want to thank all of you for joining us and talking about this concept of rational religion. I mean, isn't religion, by its very nature, rational?
It has to be. It has to address all faculties of human beings. It has to treat the human being as a whole, and intellect, reasoning is certainly a crucial part of it. So any religion that does not address that portion has no chance of addressing a significant portion of humanity.
So, Stephen, we talk about this a lot. We actually were talking about this before we got in the air. You said, whether it's my faith, being Catholic, we just do this as the Pope leaves the United States, had great impact on so many people. You said the Pope speaks in very rational ways about religion. That's not always the case with folks. But you said more than ever before, you just can't go through the process and through the format and through the ritual. It has to make sense, right?
Right. You and I started this conversation a couple of years ago, and we were stressing ethical and spiritual. But I think the aspect that was missing was rational. That when you present something, it has to make sense to the people of today. There's a revolution going on in technology and the way people think, and religion, if they want to be credible today, every word that they say has to make sense today. And I think Pope Francis, in the best he can, is trying to re-examine all of the doctrines and slowly say, well, doesn't this make more sense in today's world? And let's try to live with that. But for him, it's a long process. And I think every religion has to start that process if they want to retain and survive as a religion.
Doctor, as a Catholic leader, definition of rational religion?
Definitely every religion has a rational component to it. And without a rational component, it becomes fundamentalism.
Fundamentalism.
So an uncritical thinking. Critical thinking is integral, essential to the vibrancy of a religious tradition in today's world. For Catholics, you can go back to Anselm of Canterbury, 12th century abbot, saint, philosopher, who gave the classic definition of theology as faith-seeking understanding. Faith-seeking understanding. Faith has a rational component to it. It needs to be understood, and one understands by thinking critically, long and hard about the issues in the context of the times that one lives in. So Steve's point is absolutely correct. A living tradition always has to be re-examining itself and re-expressing itself in terms and ways that make sense to the people in a particular time and place. So your point earlier was absolutely on target.
Thank you.
Jacov, let me bring you into this. You're a documentary filmmaker.
Yes.
Originally from
Croatia. I think religion as itself is irrational. And
religion in itself is irrational.
Yes, and I think it's very important to talk about and to implement rational part of to religion, because rationalism teaches us tolerance. I think today we need tolerance, especially when you talk about religions and about religion generally.
Yeah, well, talk about that a little bit more. I mean, we can talk about this in theory, tolerance, but you understand it firsthand. I mean, you understand this from your country, where you came from.
Yeah.
People who are intolerant.
I think just rational part of religion, because Croatia is 94% are Catholics.
Yes.
And especially because of that, I think we must know what tolerance is. We have tolerance is growing and growing, especially because of influence of other religions, of people who finally traveling, because under communism we didn't have a chance to travel abroad and to invite people to come to see Croatia. Now I think we have very high standard of tolerance in Croatia.
So let's talk about the fact that, you mentioned, if it's not rational, you brought up, well, then it's fundamental, or it's fundamentalism.
Right.
Is that how you see it?
Fundamentalism.
It's fundamentalism.
Right. So a fundamentalism.
Respectfully, I'm sorry for interrupting. Why can't you be fundamental or a fundamentalist, or engage in the fundamentalism movement, fundamentalist movement, and still be rational? Why can't you be? Because if I had someone from that movement right here, he or she would say, we're very rational. No?
Well, if the nature of rationality is that one engages in critical thinking and examines one's assumptions and seeks to find new ways to express those assumptions in a new time, then a fundamentalist approach gets to what you're talking about, an irrational approach. It doesn't want to think about itself. And I think the genius of Francis is that he's inviting Catholic...
St. Francis.
This point
Pope
he's
Francis.
still Pope Francis.
Okay.
Maybe someday he'll be a saint. At least at this point.
You just call him Francis.
He's a Jesuit.
Which is quite rational?
Rigorously trained, 13
Is that why
years.
some of the Catholic Church had problems with it for a long time?
They've had problems with him because of some of the positions and stances he's taken, not least of which is the fact that he's gone into new territories. He was engaged in Christian-Jewish dialogue and relationships in Argentina at a time when that was not an acceptable thing.
Was that also why some of the Catholic Church historically had so many problems with the Jesuit movement, because it was particularly rational?
The Jesuits were at the forefront of many of the great movements of reform in the Catholic Church.
Jump in now.
Well, I want to speak to the fundamentalism issue. To me, the problem in fundamentalism is the lack of honesty and the lack of holistic perspective.
We'll take a step back. I want to apologize for interrupting. Establish is the Gulen movement?
Yes, I'm a participant in the Gulen movement.
Explain what that is within the religion of Islam.
Well, this is a social movement which was started by faithful citizens in Turkey, influenced by this preacher, Mr. Fethullah Gülen, in the 60s in Turkey. Originally, it consisted completely of Muslims, Turkish and Kurdish Muslims. Increasingly, it's becoming more transnational and including non-Muslims and non-Turks in it. But the basic idea of the movement is that spiritually, every person has room for growth. So we should grow spiritually, become a more completed human being, but also we should complete this with social action. That is, improve our society together with members of other faiths.
So the focus on education, social work.
Humanitarian aid, intercultural dialogue.
Is that very different from what some might argue is the view of some in the Islamic community who they would argue would be more fundamental? Fundamentalist?
So coming back to the fundamentalism as it is understood today, I think every religion seeks from its adherents an honest and holistic look. When you lose these two perspectives, honesty and the holistic look, then you may become fundamentalist as it is understood today. That is, you do not embrace religion and seek what is God's purpose, what is God's intention in the text, in the scripture, in the tradition, and you do not look at the whole of the religion. You only pick certain aspects of religion. Then your intention is not sincere. You're not really seeking God's intention for you, God's intention for your fulfilled life. You're simply trying to satisfy some other need through religion. You're, in a sense, instrumentalizing religion for some other purpose.
And that could be done with someone who could be Islamic fundamentalist or a Christian
could be done in any religion.
fundamentalist. Right. Steve, is it any different which religion we're talking about? You buy this?
I happen to know the Gulen movement because I was invited.
Go ahead.
The influence of that movement pre this present administration was immense.
Talk about it.
The educational system, the school systems, I mean, their impact on Turkey was absolutely incredible. And we were invited, I mean, you have no idea how, it is, in Donald Trump, this was really a huge movement and a huge influence in Turkey until the present regime came out and they're bitter enemies in essence. So I appreciate what he's saying. I think there is a little bit of conflict between fundamentalism and rationalism, because fundamentalism somewhat wants to be, is more historical in its perspective going backwards, and I think rationality is moving forwards. And I think, as you know, Rabbi Jack Ben-Paradi said,
He's been with us many times.
The most important thing in life is creativity, and one of the worst deterrents in life is habit.
Habit.
Because you tend to do the same thing over and over without thinking about it.
And do you think that one of the problems in the fundamentalist movement is that many of those involved in it are engaged in habit?
They're looking historically, and they are not taking the changing times. I think what we related to when I was growing up, my father said, do something, and I said, why? And he said, because I told you so. Today,
not good enough in religion?
It's not good enough today in society. In today's society, if you want to be a religion that appeals to people, what we're talking about is religion appealing to, religion as an institution is not doing very well.
How about the Jewish religion?
Not doing very well. We have, in America, only 4% of Jews attend temple or belong to a temple. Most of the Jews, I would say, there's a 50 to 75% intermarriage rate. They don't have a belief system. And the reason they don't have a belief system, because when you go to temple, you have the same ritualistic, if you go to bar mitzvah and have a bar mitzvah and you talk about Jonah and the whale, how many kids today are really going to say, that's rational, that really makes sense to me, that's something I'm going to live with? So when you have the opportunity in today's world, you've got to concentrate on those things of powerful ideas. The most powerful thing in the world is ideas. And when you have these young kids today, instead of going through the same repetitive things where the kids can't wait to get out of there, if you excite them with ideas, if you excite them with things, I'm sure in your life you've heard a phrase or two that really got you excited. And the reason institutions are so important are they're the ones who have the mechanism for people to think about and give you these exciting ideas.
Yeah, but let me push back in this way. Maybe it's not pushing back, but it's an interesting way to look at this. So as the Pope presents so many exciting ideas for those of us who happen to be Catholic. Now, you're Catholic, you are Catholic. So if you go back to Mass after the Pope leaves, and too much of, if not all of, the Mass on Sunday feels incredibly ritualistic, which is part of the tradition, and then part of it is beautiful, and part of it is part of why we're Catholic. But there's no sense of it, even in the homily. I mean, the Pope's homily, you know, when he gave it, was so incredibly powerful, and the words and the ideas were so moving. But you go back, and if you know that, you get where I'm going here. If it feels as if it's going backwards, it's not new, it's not powerful, it doesn't connect or resonate, are we not doing what Stephen just said, and is it not particularly rational because it's just habit?
Right, but
Not to mention the priest is often reading what he has read 100 times, and you know he's just been given.
So
Am I making too much of that?
What Rabbi Bemperod points to when he talks about habit, it's a way of living life without reflecting on life, without finding new ways to express things.
Because there's things happening around us every day.
And your point, I think, is about your own country's experience post-communism, the opening up
In Croatia.
In Croatia, that allows people to be meeting people from other places and other traditions, and then in the dialogue and the interaction, new things happen. If I go back to Francis for one moment, Pope Francis. One of the most moving things for me that he did was after the speech to Congress, he went out onto the speaker's balcony, 50,000 people, and they had put up front teenagers. So there were rows and rows and rows of teenagers. And he said, now, let's focus on the most important people who are here. And he pointed to the teenagers.
Right.
And then he said, I'm going to pray for you. Exhorted them to do good in the world.
Yes.
And then he asked them, he said, and please pray for me.
Yes, he did.
But the very last two sentences were the ones that I think are indicative of this new style, this engagement that Steve's talking about. And he says, and if you don't believe in God, or if you have trouble believing in God, or if you don't pray or don't know how to pray, then please send me your good wishes. See, rather than saying, shame on you for not praying, shame on you for not believing in God, he touched where for those who did not believe and who don't pray, he touched a connecting point.
As opposed to?
Being judgmental or condescending. And I think what Steve's getting at is we need to keep finding the ways to find the touch points.
Which bring us, the things that bring us together.
The things that bring us together.
Jacov, jump on that, I'll come back to Steve.
I think this is very important because people lost faith in institutions today. And the Pope is institution, huge, the biggest institution for Catholics.
That's right.
I think it's very important to do something to start to believe again on the highest institution in Catholic Church, not only Catholic Church, talking about other religions. But I think it's very important.
And the fact that the Pope brought others together in interfaith dialogue, Steve, how significant was that for you? And is that part of the rational religion movement?
Let me just go back.
Sure.
The reason, there's certain opportunities that every religion has, other than voluntarily going to church on Sunday, which you may not change the habit, which you refer to, but you have to go through confirmation. You have to go through a bar mitzvah. Those are the opportunities where you can instill in these children the kind of things that you want them to do.
The sacraments, as we say, being Catholic.
Then you can talk about rational. That's the time when you have the young children where you can change what you're teaching them or implement what you're teaching them with this concept that everything I'm saying makes sense, and you give them the powerful ideas.
That's the opportunity.
The opportunity is when they have to go. I don't think you're going to make people go more to church than they did, but there is in every religion a time when you have to go, and that's the opportunity they have to seize.
Your reaction to that? And how do you do it with your movement?
Well, one of the requirements for a Muslim to be responsible religiously is that they have intellect. For a person to be religiously responsible, they have to first of all have intellect. That means they have to use that intellect. Therefore, religion is, in a sense, obligated to answer and respond to one's making their intellect work.
Is it by what you memorize? Because that's not intellect.
Well, intellect is essentially based on the information that is getting to you, reaching logical conclusions.
Okay.
So when you consider this, and also the fact that in Islam, one of the fundamental things that the religion aims to protect is the intellect again. It is considered one of the 6 or 7 fundamental things, such as life, such as one's family and things like that. The fundamental values that the religion and the society are supposed to protect is intellect.
Intellect meaning critical thinking?
Intellect meaning the ability to think in a straight way, in a sane, in a logical way.
Could that also mean challenging the leaders of the religious community or what it is we are told? Is that part of thinking?
Well, that kind of challenging thinking, I think, is going on all the time, but it is not always expressed.
Well, it's not allowed and supported at my church.
Well, if you look at your mind, can you say it is not going on in your mind? It is going on in your mind, but it is not always expressed. I think the obligation that is on the religious leaders is to identify that, discover that, and respond to it, because you don't have to logically accept everything 100%, but it is very important that they not be illogical, because logic and reasoning depends on the information that is coming to you. So sometimes the information may be insufficient, something may not make sense, but if it is not illogical, you can leave room for
a discussion
future
about it?
acceptance.
Well, here's the issue, and I'm not going to turn into it. This isn't a discussion about Catholicism, which is a whole different show, and you know.
Invite me back for that one.
Yeah, I'll invite you back. That's what therapy's for. But that being said, you ever hear someone use the term cafeteria Catholic? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like the term, and I've been referred to as that. And there are millions of others in this country who are called that, or people think others are that. And here's why it concerns me, because it goes against, in my view, as I interpret, rational religion. Because that is like saying, look, there are certain things that are being said, as someone who happens to be divorced, couldn't be remarried in the Catholic Church because that's what it says. And it says you can't even receive communion. The most important part of the Mass, correct, Doctor? No, that is what is said by the leaders of the Church. My point is, no discussion about it, can't talk about it.
But that's entirely changed today.
Okay, well, the point I'm making, that's as you see it, the point I'm making is, if you have the discussion about these things and say, I accept these things, I question those, you're a cafeteria Catholic. Someone else might argue, you're being rational. You're being rational. And the question becomes, no, you're a bad Catholic if you question it. But according to, as I understand our discussions about this for a long time, Steve, rational means questioning, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And to be Catholic.
And by the way, no women in the Catholic Church. Don't question it. It's rational. I'm wondering, wouldn't we bring in more people? Wouldn't we help younger people want to be a part of the Catholic Church? Isn't it rational? No, that's not part of the discussion. What am I missing?
What you're missing is that there's definitely a diversity of opinions and within the church, and no one says
not among the leadership.
No, that's not true. You'll find you have cardinals and archbishops and bishops today asking for a complete reevaluation of the laws around
I'm having you back separately.
Marriage.
I'm having you back separately, Steve. But if hypothetically, if a religion says we're not talking about that, we can't talk about that, that's irrational, correct?
The whole point of bringing up the concept of rationality is to bring pressure from the bottom upwards. Now, in Judaism, it's a lot easier because we're told we can challenge God at will, so for us, it's no big deal. But the reason the three of us got together with Rabbi Ben-Parat to form these 10 principles of rational religion is, as a starting point, we can all agree on those 10 principles.
Which, by the way, you can find on your website. Go ahead.
Right. But the whole point is, it's the church or any religion is going to respond eventually to the congregation. Because if they're losing members or they're being disinterested in not going, the church wants to survive. Judaism wants to, every religion wants to survive and prosper. And if the congregation starts demanding these things, and they're saying, let's, like, you're protesting, I know there's a lot of things.
Well, we'll do that another show.
But I'm just saying, if there are things you don't like, demand the explanation. We're trying to cause a conversation about rationality, which happens to be, at least I think, in all three religions, and one time historically have been embedded in their religions. Now, at times, that's been superseded by other historical events. But I think based on the history right now, it's that time.
Opportunity here, a few seconds left. Opportunity here to do this? Opportunity for real discussion, interfaith,
I think,
about rational religion?
I think there is opportunity within each religion, and there's an opportunity through interfaith dialogue. 21st century, I think, gives us the best opportunity.
You feel it? You feel it?
Absolutely.
Yes, I think so. And I'll tell you, when I heard for the very first time about rational part of religion, we did together a film, Brave Little Boat.
I know.
It's a story about a boat in Denmark who saved Jewish people during Holocaust. And you know who was first person who helped?
Who was it?
Catholic priest from Germany. And when I asked him why, because Steven asked me why, and I asked him, he said, look, I emotionally but rationally I want to help because this is a great idea.
That's a great way to end. By the way, would you come back and we'll talk about Catholicism separately?
Be happy to.
And I cannot thank all of you enough. This will be the first of many conversations on rational religion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus, New Jersey has been provided by Caldwell University, United Water, Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, New Jersey Sharing Network, Wells Fargo, and by NJM. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus, New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
Driving safety is not a joke. It's not a punchline. It's more than just an ad campaign. It's a frame of mind. And it's an everyday commitment. By taking a few simple steps, many car accidents can be avoided. Become an advocate for driving safety today. This message has been brought to you as a public service by NJM Insurance Group.